Giving up on intimacy might actually be quietly stealing your health, your vitality, and even your sense of purpose. You see, intimacy, and I'm talking about more than just the physical act, but the deep human connection, touch, and affection, is not a luxury in our later years. It's a vital part of aging well. It brings with it some truly powerful benefits that most people don't even realize they're missing out on. Let's talk about what happens when you embrace this truth. Your brain stays sharper longer. I'll never forget George, a retired math teacher who was 72 when he came to see me. He was complaining about forgetfulness, names slipping his mind, trouble focusing, and just not feeling as sharp as he used to. On the surface, there was nothing obviously wrong, no signs of serious illness. But after we talked a bit, he shared that since his wife passed away 5 years prior, he hadn't been sexually active at all. Now, it's easy to just dismiss that, isn't it? Many people do. But here's what the science and my years of seeing patients tells us. When sexual intimacy disappears, your brain actually loses one of its most powerful sources of stimulation. Sexual activity increases blood flow to the brain, especially in areas linked to memory, emotion, and learning. It also triggers a release of natural feel-good chemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. These aren't just for a good mood. They actually help protect your brain from aging, reduce stress, and improve sleep. Without that regular stimulation, that release of these vital chemicals, the brain can start to slow down. Focus can fade, energy drops, and yes, the risk of cognitive decline and even early dementia can rise. It's not about being a miracle cure, but intimacy, in any form, helps keep your mind engaged and your emotional circuits active. People often withdraw when it's absent, becoming less social, less curious, and less motivated to care for themselves. That quiet fading isn't just emotional, it's neurological, and it can be hard to reverse once it truly sets in. But the good news is, staying connected can absolutely help keep your brain active, alert, and emotionally alive well into your 80s and beyond. Your body maintains vital circulation and hormonal balance. While your brain might show the earliest signs, your body certainly doesn't stay silent when intimacy fades. I remember Linda and Carl, a wonderful couple in their late 60s, who had been married for almost 40 years, but for the past 5, their physical connection had slowly just faded. Linda gently said, "We just assumed that part of life was over." Carl nodded, but admitted he didn't feel like himself anymore. Low energy, lost muscle, gained weight, and just felt older than his age. What stood out when we looked deeper was their complete lack of intimacy. When sexual activity disappears, especially after 60, your body begins to lose its natural rhythm. The cardiovascular boost from arousal and physical touch fades, circulation slows down, blood vessels become less responsive, and oxygen delivery to vital organs like your heart and brain diminishes. Think of it like this. Sex isn't just about pleasure. It's a form of exercise that promotes blood flow, increases lung capacity, and supports a stronger heart. When you stop, your body notices. Even more critical is the impact on your hormones. For men, testosterone levels can drop without stimulation, leading to fatigue, weight gain, irritability, and even depression. For women, a decrease in estrogen and oxytocin can increase the risk of osteoporosis, joint pain, and mood swings. These aren't just little annoyances. They can seriously affect your mobility, independence, and long-term health. The problem is these changes creep in so quietly. You don't wake up feeling dramatically different. You just walk a little slower, gain some weight, sleep poorly, and assume it's just normal aging. But much of it could very well be a direct result of that physical disconnection and lack of sexual stimulation. The beautiful truth is, you don't even need to engage in intercourse to reap these benefits. Gentle touch, physical closeness, and even emotional intimacy can reactivate those crucial hormonal pathways. It's about presence, not just performance. Your relationship and self-worth flourish. There's a specific kind of silence I've seen far too often in couples who've been together for decades. A heavy, unspoken silence between them. I once sat with Margaret, a 74-year-old woman whose husband had survived cancer. The treatments had taken a toll, and they had stopped being intimate. She looked at me, her eyes welling up, and whispered, "I miss feeling like someone's partner, not just their caregiver." I miss being touched. That quiet distance, emotional, physical, unspoken, can slowly unravel even the strongest relationships. When intimacy fades, we often stop reaching out, stop initiating, stop believing we're still desirable. What's left is a strange kind of loneliness, not just being alone, but feeling unseen even in the presence of the person who once knew you best. This loneliness can turn into resentment, shame, or deep insecurity. And if you're single, this applies just as much. When we stop believing we're worthy of physical or emotional closeness, we begin to shrink, not just in desire, but in our very identity. We lose that part of ourselves that craves to be wanted, to be held, to feel like we still matter as a whole person. This erosion of self-worth may not show up on a blood test, but it can steal years of joy from your life. It can lead to depression, anxiety, withdrawal, and even serious health decline. Our human hearts simply weren't built to live without connection. But here's the powerful truth. It doesn't have to stay that way. Even the smallest steps towards affection, openness, and vulnerability can rebuild bridges. I've seen couples in their 70s laugh again, flirt again, even fall in love all over again, simply because they dared to reach for each other once more. Emotional intimacy, in fact, is like emotional medicine. Physical affection releases chemicals that regulate your mood, reduce stress, improve sleep, support your immune function, and lower your risk of heart disease. When that emotional connection disappears, whether it's out of grief, guilt, or pride, men and women can begin to wither. They may experience increased depression, higher cortisol levels, weaker immune response, elevated blood pressure, and even an early decline in brain function due to chronic emotional isolation. I've seen men appear to age 10 years in half the time simply because they had no one to hold, no one to talk to at night, no one to share their body or soul with. They survived, but they weren't truly alive. You may be extending your life. Perhaps the most surprising benefit of all is that maintaining intimacy may actually help you live longer. I once cared for Robert, an 81-year-old man who was proud, independent, and sharp as a tack. What truly struck me was how alive he seemed compared to others his age. When I asked him his secret, he smiled and said, "I still flirt with my wife every morning, we hold each other every night, and sometimes we still make love." It wasn't about the act itself, but the connection, the spark, the joy of feeling fully human. What Robert instinctively knew is something science has now proven. Regular sexual intimacy, in any form, is associated with a longer life. I'm not talking about pushing yourself to extremes like you were 20. I'm talking about real, consistent closeness, touch, affection, and arousal. These things release powerful chemicals like oxytocin and endorphins that reduce inflammation, lower blood pressure, and strengthen your heart. One study, for instance, found that older adults who maintained a regular sex life had significantly lower mortality rates. That's not just an opinion, that's data. Physical affection isn't just comforting, it's life-giving. It improves sleep, sharpens your immunity, lowers stress hormones like cortisol, and gives your nervous system the reset it desperately needs as you age. When that intimacy disappears, stress levels can stay high, sleep becomes shallow, the immune system weakens, and you feel more anxious and isolated. These aren't just emotional effects, they have measurable consequences for your health and even your lifespan. Too many people accept this decline as just getting older, but often it begins with disconnection. Your body was built to thrive on closeness. When you deprive it of that, whether by choice, habit, or circumstance, you quietly increase your risk of chronic illness, depression, and premature death. It's never too late to start again. I've watched people in their 70s and 80s regain this connection and literally transform not just how they feel, but how they live. That spark is still within you, even if it feels buried under years of silence or self-doubt. I'll never forget Eleanor, who was 78 when she came to see me. She was sharp-minded and beautifully composed, but her voice cracked as she said, "I miss feeling like a woman, not someone's grandmother, not someone's patient, just a woman." It had been nearly a decade since she felt any physical affection, and she confessed she believed that part of her life was simply over. But what she didn't know, and what I see every day, is the incredible ability of the human spirit to reawaken. No matter your age, whether it's been months or years, intimacy is still possible. Desire may change with age, and your body may not respond the way it once did, but real, nourishing, meaningful connection never expires. Rebuilding intimacy doesn't have to start with grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with a conversation, a hand held, a shared laugh, or even simple eye contact. A vulnerable "I miss you" can reopen doors you thought were shut for good. For couples, that first step back might feel awkward or even scary, but every time I've seen someone take it, they emerge lighter, more alive, and closer than they've been in years. And if you're single, widowed, or alone, this message is still for you. Reconnection can begin with yourself. Your body is still worthy of care, and your heart still has space for touch, joy, and companionship, whether through deep friendships, therapeutic touch, or opening yourself to future love. The path is still open. The question isn't, can I get it back? The question is, am I willing to try? I've worked with countless people who assumed their time had passed, some dealing with illness, others with shame, fear, or years of distance. But when they gave themselves permission to try, without pressure or expectation, something inside them lit up. Their energy changed, their health improved, and more than anything, they started to feel like themselves again. You are not too old, you are not too far gone, and your story isn't finished yet. In fact, your next chapter might be the most fulfilling of all. So, if anything you've heard today stirred something in you, if it made you reflect, made you uncomfortable, or made you hope, please don't walk away unchanged. Talk to your partner, talk to your doctor, make that appointment, open that conversation. And most of all, stop believing the lie that this part of your life is behind you. It isn't. There is still so much more waiting for you. More connection, more pleasure, more healing, more love. But it starts with a choice, the choice to stop surviving and start living again. You deserve more than silence. You deserve the truth and the tools to live your best years with strength, wisdom, and heart.